Okay, we will conclude this conference with, last but not least, with Emma Hood, graduate research assistant, PhD student in psychology in Old Dominion University, Virginia, in the United States of America. We all know how the crosswalks look like, but what will happen to the pedestrian and the drivers if the crosswalks will be in different shape? Emma Hood will share us her study about it.
I'm working on the pedestrian motorist self-reported behavioral intentions to use alternative and standard infrastructure. So what exactly is alternative infrastructure? What do I mean by that? And, there we go. So in the US, we have various different types of crosswalks for standard and alternative. Standard include continental, ladder, zebra, dash, standard, border, and also the alternative include three-dimensional, color additivo, murals, and rainbows. And the designs vary in colors and shapes. And so I looked at this and I was like, do they work? Do they encourage pedestrians to use them? Do motorists even notice them? Will they yield to pedestrians? So I wanted to go a little bit deeper on what I mean by standard crosswalk designs. So as you can see in the top corner, that is a border design. And sometimes it doesn't even look like a crosswalk. And in our pilot study, many people said that's not even a crosswalk. So it's very interesting that these are standard designs, but people aren't noticing them as crosswalks. In alternative crosswalk designs, we have rainbow, murals, there's different colors, and like we said, shapes, three-dimensional. This specific one right here is actually, it's a rainbow at the bottom, and it was actually outside my house. And I was like, interesting. I bet people always go across that. That's very attractive crosswalk. So, however, the question becomes, does it improve visibility? At the top picture, we see that is the pedestrian's view. And you see a very vibrant color. It looks like it would be increasing the visibility of the pedestrian crossing it. However, the bottom picture, we see that you could barely see it from the motorist point of view. And this crosswalk is about $20,000. So I wanted to look into the research of it. How many studies have been done? And many of the studies that have been done are naturalistic observations of crosswalks. So they apply the crosswalk and then they see like, okay, do people go across it? And they ask questions like, do you feel safe in the crosswalk? However, many of the studies have been conducted outside the US, and so they're ungeneralizable across population settings and situations. And a single study for alternative crosswalk designs was completed in the US, but it was testing a visual attention software and not on humans. And it was seeing if it could detect where the human would be. Now, this would be great in automated studies, like to increase the technology in automation, but not for asking the human question. So the studies, there's 8 peer-reviewed studies, and they found temporary speed reduction, high volume of pedestrian traffic post-treatment. The pedestrians and motorists perceive the alternative crosswalk as safer than traditional ones. But the primary focus of the study was on motorists and not pedestrians. So with that, my specific aims for my study was to examine road users' behavioral intentions regarding the use of different levels of safety infrastructure, with the practical implications for the design and implementation of safety measures to address pedestrian behavior. So what do I mean by pedestrian intention to use safety infrastructure? Well, are pedestrians, do they have the behavioral intention to go out of the way, to walk a minute or more, which is a time inconvenience, to cross traffic at the crosswalk? And motorist intentions was defined as motorist intention to yield to pedestrians who are crossing at the crosswalk. I did because it's so new, I decided to do a self-report survey, and we used the pedestrian behavioral questionnaire, the driver behavioral questionnaire, and the balanced inventory of desirable responding, and the behavior. And then we had 3 behavioral items that I created. And these were based on a 100-point Likert scale, where pedestrians and motorists would be shown a picture and of the 3 crosswalks that we were interested in. And we asked them, like, would you go out of the way to cross this crosswalk? Would you walk a minute or more? And then we asked pedestrians, would you yield to a pedestrian crossing it? So we did a crosswalk selection study, and we had about 20 graduate students participate in that. And I think they were shown over like 100 crosswalk designs to see which ones were which crosswalks were distinguishable. So they were different in design. And we chose the 3 that you're looking at, which is the red, white, and blue 3-dimensional, a continental for control, and then the color additivo. In our self-report survey that we launched, we had the criterion was you had to be 18 years or older, a US resident, and you had to have a valid driver's license. So we did a mixed model design with a within subjects factor being the continental, the color additivo, and colorful 3D. The dependent variable was road users' behavioral intentions, and pedestrians and motorists, are they willing to go out of the way or use the crosswalk? And then the between subjects factors were sex, age, and 2 covariates, which were intentional unsafe behaviors and social desirability. So for that, the 2 covariates, what we did was we did a composite score of the DBQ and the PBQ and of aggressive behaviors and violations to create that unsafe behavior score. And we had 3 major findings that I'm going to discuss today. So participants had higher intentions to go out of the way and yield at continental designs than 3D crosswalks, than color additivo design, sorry. And that was interesting because many of the people who we looked at why people were also not interested in the color additivo, and many of them said, and that was the blue and white design, the blue and green with like splashes of white. And we asked them, what is it about? People had said that they didn't believe that they were crosswalks. They didn't recognize them as crosswalk design. So it's like, oh, interesting. And then our second major finding was age was a stronger predictor for male participants to yield. So males, age was stronger than for females, which is pretty consistent with the literature. As males get older, their risk behaviors get lower. So that was interesting. And then for female participants, age predicted intent to go out of the way across all crosswalk designs. So for the traditional and 3D designs, participants reported as pedestrians endorsed the 2 designs more than color additivo. Like I said, a possible explanation was that color additivo were unrecognizable as crosswalks, particularly among male participants. And it could be attributed to males being unable to discern varying hues of blues and greens, and just the design in general, not really understanding that it is a crosswalk. However, it is a major crosswalk that is going into a museum in Chicago. So that was interesting. And then age moderated the sex difference in intentions at 3D crosswalk designs. So male participants had higher yield intentions at 3D than color additivo. And this is consistent with literature, like I said, where older males display more safety behaviors. But it was interesting that it was age was a stronger predictor for males than it was for females. So for female participants across all cross-leg designs, female participants had higher intentions to be inconvenienced or go out of the way and to yield, which again, this is consistent, females showing higher safety behaviors in the roadway. So, thank you.